Good morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views. First on the news, the impeachment cases against Vice President Sara Duterte takes a major step forward after the House Justice Committee finds probable cause. Marian Enriquez with the report.
4 days of hearings that zeroed in on the pieces of evidence against Vice President Sara Duterte. In the end, the House Justice Committee's vote was unanimous. All 53 members present in Wednesday's proceedings agreed that there is probable cause or sufficient basis for the 2 impeachment complaints against Duterte. From the VP's bank transaction records to the testimony of her self-proclaimed bagman Ramil Madriaga, the committee is convinced of some things. There was misuse of the Vice President's confidential funds. That's after Madriaga claimed he distributed Duterte's confidential funds worth 125 million pesos in less than 24 hours in December 2022. Then there's Sara's supposed unexplained wealth. The report of the Anti-Money Laundering Council or AMLAC detailing 6.7 billion pesos in transactions in the VP and husband Attorney Mans Carpio's bank accounts from 2006 to 2025. This showed a mismatch from her net worth declarations that peaked at only 88 million pesos.
Siya ay nagkasala sa taong bayan. Ang pondo ng gobyerno ay hindi mo pag-aari. Madam Vice President, ito ay pawis at dugo ng mga manggagawang Pilipino. May sapat na usok na tayo para patunayang may sunog. Panahon na upang dalhin ang kasong ito sa Senado.
The committee also found a reason to believe that VP Duterte threatened the life of President Bongbong Marcos, his wife Liza, and his cousin, former Speaker Martin Romualdez. The alleged kill plot was discussed at length at the House on April 29, the last hearing before the consolidated complaints will be polished and later will be brought to plenary. The National Bureau of Investigation confirmed that VP Sara's video was authentic and not edited. They also revisited the Vice President's statement when she did not attend the President's State of the Nation address. Sara then called herself the designated survivor.
There's no room for interpretation, hindi mo na kailangang ipaliwanag. And ang application nga namin, that is a threat. That is an actual threat to the President and to the wife and the former Speaker.
Meantime, the green box from the Bureau of Internal Revenue failed to yield anything, with only 6 votes in favor and 38 against the motion to open the sealed box containing the tax records of VP Sara and her husband lost. Last week, the committee did not open the box after the BIR said that doing so might violate the law. Tax records can only be disclosed in aid of legislation and within an executive session. Lawmakers who opposed its opening said it would be better if this was done in the Senate instead.
Opening this box might trigger another petition in the court to again stop the proceedings. So, sa akin pong palagay at pananaw, Madam Chair, ang posisyon ko po, pag tayo po ay magbobotahan, sa Senado na lang po natin buksan itong mahiwagang green box na to.
According to House Justice Committee Chairperson Jerva Luistro, they have been trying to call the Vice President, but she has not been responding. On the same day of the last impeachment hearing, videos of Duterte were uploaded on social media showing her at an event in a mall in San Pedro, Laguna. And so the impeachment case inches closer to plenary. The Justice Committee will meet again on Monday, May 4, to approve the committee report and discuss the articles of impeachment. Once approved and referred to plenary, copies will be given to all congressmen, the complainants, and VP Sara. Possibly on May 11, all members of the lower chamber will vote on whether or not to impeach VP Sara a second time. The articles of impeachment will then be sent to the Senate, which will hold a trial to determine her guilt or innocence. For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
And for more updates from the House of Representatives, we have mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Angela, Diego. Dito nga sa House of Representatives, aabangan pa natin kung ano pa yung magiging pahayag din ng ilang mga mambabatas, lalo na sa katatapos ng clarificatory hearings na ginawa ng House Justice Committee. Kung mababalikan lang din natin, yung nangyari kahapon, isa nga din sa mga naging manifestation ni Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sendanya bago magsimula mismo yung hearing ng House Justice Committee, ay yung pagbibigay niya din ng kanyang response doon nga sa pag-file ni Attorney Mans Carpio sa Prosecutor's Office ng Quezon City tungkol nga doon sa bank secrecy law, pati na rin sa Privacy Act na tinutukoy nga ni Attorney Carpio pagdating doon sa naging report ng Anti-Money Laundering Council, at sinabi niya na wala naman daw silang nilabag na batas at in accordance pa rin ito sa proceedings nga ng impeachment. At naging medyo dramatic din kung sasabihin natin ito nga nangyari nga last clarificatory hearing day, dahil merong mga pop culture references din na nabanggit, katulad na nga lang ni Representative Jervy Luistro na siyang committee chairperson itong House Justice Committee, kung saan nga nagbitaw siya ng line galing kay Popoy sa One More Chance, kung saan nga kung maririnig din natin merong nasabi kasi itong kampo ni VP Sara pagdating doon sa ginagawang proceedings itong House Justice Committee na maging cautious nga daw. So yun ang nabanggit ni Representative Luistro na mag-ingat nga din daw, pero hindi daw kasi parang out of care yung pagsasabi nito ng camp ni VP Sara, kundi parang bilang babala. At sinagot din naman yan ni Sagip Party List Representative Paulo Marcoleta, nasabi niya na ayun nga may line din daw si Popoy pero naging misquote ito dahil line pala yun ni Piolo Pascual sa pelikulang Starting Over Again, kung saan sinasabi niya nga na I deserve an acceptable reason, I deserve an explanation, ganun yung mga sinabi. Patungkol naman yan doon sa pagbubukas nga at bago nga magbotohan mismo ang mga miyembro ng House Justice Committee pagdating dito sa pagbubukas nung green box na naglalaman nga ng tax records ni Vice President Sara Duterte at ni Attorney Mans Carpio.
Amy, ngayon na tapos na ito sa House Justice Committee and papunta na sa plenary ito, how long will that take naman sa plenary, yung supposedly yung botohan tsaka explanation or kanya-kanyang speeches?
Well, technically kasi sa May 4, Diego, ay mag-meet nga ulit itong House Justice Committee para nga maaprubahan na mismo yung committee report na gagawin na siya rin talaga magsisilbing articles of impeachment. Habang sa May 11, dahil nga doon din expected din na timeline ng House Justice Committee, sa May 11 expected na magkakaroon na nga din mismo ng vote itong House of Representatives pagdating doon sa committee report or doon sa articles of impeachment na ipapasa nila. Dahil kung makikita din natin kasi yung calendar ng House, kung ma-approve man itong committee report ng May 4, may plenary sessions pa ng May 5 at May 6 kung saan pwedeng magbigay ng kanilang manifestations din at ng kanilang pahayag yung iba pang mga mambabatas. At 106 lang naman na confirmation lang din yung kinakailangan nila from all the members of the House of Representatives, dahil nga yun yung 1/3 ng bilang ng mga mambabatas sa Kamara. So technically nakikita naman nila na ma-achieve yung ganitong number din. So hopefully by May 11 nga ay mapasa na ito mismo sa lower chamber.
Wait lang, 106 kasi ngayon meron silang 53 galing sa House Justice
Kalahati
Committee.
na
So
lang.
ang igagapang na lang is 53 more. Based sa mga pag-ikot-ikot mo dyan or nakakausap mo, have you heard or seen any congressmen who as of this point medyo are inclined to vote for the impeachment in the positive?
Well, technically, nung nagbantay tayo dito sa House nung mga nakaraang linggo din, naririnig natin yung ilang mga parties na rin kung saan nga nagsasabi sila na talagang it's up to the congressman, katulad ng ng National Unity Party, up to the congressman na daw kung ano nga ba iboboto nila. Nagkaroon din last week ng press conference, ito si Batangas Representative Leandro Leviste, kung saan sinasabi niya nandun siya sa opposition. So hindi pa natin alam. Pero Pero confident yung mga members din ng House Justice Committee dahil nga 53 na silang bumoto na para nga dito sa impeachment ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Kinakailangan na lang nila technically ng 53 more. So kalahati na lang din talaga yung kinakailangan para nga may pagpatuloy itong mga inihaing reklamo laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. And mabanggit ko na lang din, doon sa committee report nga, i-consolidate din talaga nila yung mga yung dalawang impeachment complaints na natira, kabilang na nga dyan yung Sabaya et al. Complaint, pati yung Cabrera complaint na inendorso ni ML Party List Representative Laila De Lima at Manila Representative Benny Abante.
Alright, Amy, no, for context lang din, bigyan natin ating mga kababayan ng context na ito because itong route or yung path na ginawa ng Kongreso sa pag-impeach ng isang public official ay hindi ito katulad nung nakaraang impeachment, 'di ba? Ang ginawa nila dito ay through filing yun ng isang citizen at inendorse ng miyembro ng Kamara. That's why nagkaroon ng clarificatory hearings, di ba, ng mga nakaraang araw. So ngayon, sa May 4, ano yung gagawin doon? Hindi pa yun ang botohan because May 11, sabi mo nga ang botohan. So how significant is the May 4 hearing dito sa impeachment process?
Actually, Angela, doon natin makikita nga din dahil nga nasabi ko na i-consolidate, nagkaroon din ng motion kahapon na i-consolidate na nga itong Sabaya et al. At Cabrera complaint. Doon makikita ng mga complainants, endorsers, pati ng members of course ng House Justice Committee. At syempre, kung dadating, which is hindi naman natin ina-expect si Vice President Sara Duterte, doon nila makikita technically yung consolidated form nitong impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte. So makikita din naman natin kung narinig din natin yung mga nagdaang pagdinig, no, halos parehas lang din naman talaga yung naging laman nitong dalawang reklamo, kabilang na nga dyan yung napag-usapan sa mga clarificatory hearing, katulad ng confidential funds, unexplained wealth, pati na rin yung sa grave threat nga na ibinibigay ni VP Sara sa ehekutibo ng ating bansa. So yun yung makikita natin kung ano nga ba yung mas maayos na latag given na nandoon na yung allegations ng both complaints na natira dito sa Kamara.
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyong oras. That was our mobile journalist, Amy Atienza.
House Justice Committee Chair Representative Jervil Luistro defended the panel's handling of impeachment complaints, saying members strictly followed constitutional rules. In an interview with The Big Story, Luistro said the committee did not violate any law, including the bank secrecy law and AMLAC regulations. She also said it was disappointing that Vice President Sara Duterte did not appear before the panel, though she acknowledged it was Vice President's prerogative whether to attend.
I am very much confident that we did not violate any law, neither the provisions of the bank secrecy law, nor the provision of the Anti-Money Laundering Act. It is on this point and on this scenario that I strongly stand for the Constitution and for accountability mechanism, that everything that we did in the Justice Committee is aligned with the mandate of the Constitution. Well, on May 4, we are supposed to approve the committee report, including the attached resolution setting forth the articles of impeachment. The motion of Congresswoman Laila De Lima was very timely because I almost overlooked that we are supposed to approve an articles of impeachment and it cannot be two. It has to be one only, no? So I really appreciated the timely motion of Congresswoman Laila De Lima to consolidate the grounds of impeachment in the Sabale complaint and the Cabrera complaint under one articles of impeachment. Because indeed, we can take up only one articles of impeachment and we can transmit to the plenary only one articles of impeachment.
Meanwhile, mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Laila De Lima told 1PHS sa totoo lang that Duterte's failure to face the hearings was an indication of a lack of respect for the process. De Lima also expressed confidence that the complaint would secure enough votes in the plenary and be immediately transmitted to the Senate.
Bilang endorser po ng Sabaya et al. Complaint, I am confident na makakakuha po ng required votes, at least 1/3. As you said, Yung 53, maaasahan po yan siyempre na boboto na i-impeach si VP Sara. So, dadagdagan na lang po natin ng more than 50. Mas maganda po if it is really more than one-third. Ang one-third sa aming pagbibilang po, it's about 105 votes. So, ilan na lang po ang boto na kukunin para talaga ma-impeach na si VP Sara. I am confident. The very fact itself na naging unanimous sa committee level ay the chances na makapasa rin sa House plenary is high.
All right, let's now talk to Attorney Reginald Tongol, former spokesperson of the Senate Impeachment Court, to get his insights. Attorney, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Angela and Diego. Nice to see you again.
All right, Attorney, of course, isang issue na that was hounding the impeachment court at the time you were there was yung the word forthwith, which has now been settled, no? Were you surprised at all, or if not, you were expecting the decision of the Supreme Court?
Actually, I was surprised because of the fact that the issue on the impeachment has been settled by another case, which is the Duterte versus House of Representatives decision by the Supreme Court last year, and early this year on the motion for reconsideration. We didn't expect that the court will still rule on the issue of defining forthwith. Usually, courts like these, when there are similar cases that has overtaken by subsequent events, the Supreme Court will just render a decision that it is moot and academic and would not necessarily go into the details of the case. So it was a welcome development for us because at least now there will be no confusion as to the meaning of forthwith.
Well, welcome development, pero why do you think the Supreme Court then decided to rule on this when they had the opportunity to just render it moot and academic?
The Supreme Court usually weighs the nature of the case and the interest of the public and the whole institution of the government. So I think there was no reason for the Supreme Court to decide this very main issue on the other case of Duterte versus House of Representatives or any other case if there was any filed or with the pending cases now filed by other parties. So I think instead of just losing the opportunity, it wants to already make itself part of the whole impeachment process by defining the constitutional word of forthwith.
But having said that, Attorney, do you think that this ruling would create precedent, no, in the future na kung sakali we find ourselves again in this position, this could be a reference na ito na yung susundin natin?
You're right, Angela. That's precisely the public interest interest that was considered by the Supreme Court when it did what it did in defining forthwith. Because the last definition of forthwith was done by the Supreme Court in 1935. I was already harping on 3 cases decided in 1902, in 1928, and 1935, even last year. So there was no definitive recent definition of forthwith until this case has been released by the Supreme Court yesterday.
Baka you can refresh us, Attorney. Ano ba yung 1935 na yun? Kasi hindi pa ako pinapanganak nun. Baka ikaw pinanganak na nun.
lahat tayo, Diego, no? So there was a New Masonic Temple Association versus Alfonso that was the latest, no? That was decided in 1935. The Supreme Court at the time said that forthwith means it is always modified by circumstance and the nature of the duty to be performed. In Myers and Company versus Antolz, that was a 1928 case, the Supreme Court said it is a word that is elastic in nature and varies in every case. And the earliest Supreme Court decision, which is an en banc decision that laid the doctrine for the meaning of forthwith, and should have been followed as law of the land based on the new civil code, the Supreme Court said there that forthwith means with reasonable time which may be a longer or shorter period according to the circumstances of each particular case, citing an English or an American case in that Fisher versus Ambler case. It is a Philippine Supreme Court decision.
Right. In your statement yesterday, after this ruling came out, you said that the ruling is not just a vindication for those of us who navigated this complex legal waters. Why do you have to say vindicated? Can you expound that statement, Attorney?
Yeah, because remember when the debate was on for almost like that was February until June. The legal pundits and the political commentators were just harping on how forthwith should be construed by the Senate impeachment court, or the Senate at the time before it was convened, to be construed as immediately. The proponent, especially Justice Carpio, Attorney Sarmiento, and the others were echoing that same definition of forthwith. While I was doing my media rounds, and even in debate with Congressman Laila de Lima, and my talk with Justice Carpio and Richard Didarin, I was already pointing out these three Supreme Court cases, which should not have been an issue anymore had they followed, or had they also heard that these cases already define forthwith. So I was asking for their legal basis, but they were not giving me any. It's just their own interpretation of forthwith based on a Google search or a Webster
Dictionary.
reference.
Yeah.
Dictionary reference. So, but as lawyers, we all know that we should follow whatever the Supreme Court has said. And a mere Google search of these three cases, they would have known that these cases already exist at the time. But they turned a blind eye to it, still trying to push for the Senate to convene at the time forthwith.
Yung isang naging, dugtong ko lang kasi isa pa naging issue kasi, Attorney, aside from forthwith, yung accusation against the lower house from railroading and bypassing certain processes in transmitting to the Senate. Madaming issue lumabas doon. And the one way that this was addressed by the committee chair ng Justice Committee, si Jervil, Congressman Luistro, was by adding this component of probable cause, which sa amin na hindi masyadong maalam or surprised by this move, kasi ang alam namin form and substance lang. So do you think this adding of probable cause was timely and was sufficient enough to address all these issues, or was it redundant to a impending trial sa Senate?
I think the move of Congresswoman Luistro was correct. It was following the rules of the Congress on the impeachment process. If you look at the rules of impeachment, the main duty of the Committee on Justice is to determine the existence of probable cause. That evidentiary threshold or burden of proof has to be met by the complainants. And that is easy to be met. There are Supreme Court cases saying even hearsay evidence can be taken in to prove probable cause. So that is a pretty low burden of proof when it comes to criminal cases. When we go to preliminary investigation, if you file criminal cases, it's also the same threshold before the DOJ changed it to a reasonable certainty of conviction, or prima facie case with reasonable certainty of conviction. So now it's just coming to light because of the decision of the Supreme Court in the Duterte versus House of Representatives to cover their so-called assets. I think the Justice Committee is right in having to reiterate that burden of proof threshold to be met by the complainant to determine the sufficiency of substance of the complaints for impeachment.
All right, regarding sa decision pa rin, Attorney, how do you interpret the differing views? Like say, for example, si Associate Justice Benjamin Caguiwa did not take part in the voting, and then itong si Senior Associate Justice Marvic Leonen only concurred in the result that the petition was moot na nga, 'di ba? Kumbaga parang tapos naman na yung usapin tungkol diyan. So, parang ang sinasabi pa rin naman niya, the impeachment court should have been convened immediately and that the court as a whole, not only the Senate President. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, while we do not have the full decision yet, I scoured the Supreme Court website yesterday. The press release said the decision will be uploaded. It was not uploaded yet as of yesterday, so we only have the press release to analyze. So basically, as I said earlier, the Supreme Court usually acts and just by dismissing a case that was been superseded by another case, by just dismissing it and saying muted academic. So I think that was the view of Justice Leonen, that the other associates should not have decided anymore on the issue of the forthwith. However, he also said in his concurring opinion that the Senate as a whole, not just the Senate President, should be the one to have convened. However, if you look at the Senate rules, which the Senate has the sole power to promulgate, such as the House of Representatives, they have also the sole power to promulgate the House rules on impeachment under the Constitution. The letter of the rule says that upon receipt of the articles of impeachment, it is the Senate President who will call and convene for the Senate impeachment court. So it was the duty of the Senate President. It wasn't. He wasn't overreaching his authority at the time. And even now, the same rules apply until now.
Oo. And then of course nakalagay dun sa ruling discretionary nga yung timing. So if timing is discretionary, what stops a future Senate President or the Senate itself from, let's say for example, indefinitely delaying something because for other reason, political or whatsoever.
Very vague pa rin kasi.
Very vague pa rin kasi na baka mamaya may Supreme Court ruling dito. So forthwith is not immediately.
Yes. That's the good thing. Because since there were already Supreme Court decisions saying it is elastic, it is based on circumstances. So the only guidepost that we have to see if the delay was unreasonable. So it is going to be on a case-to-case basis. So every impeachment case that there seems to be delay, the petitioner going to the Supreme Court should, and filing a mandamus case like this case, should prove that there is unreasonableness in the delay. So, and it's the court who will decide whether there was unreasonableness or not.
So, ang tanong dito, attorney, kung let's say everything is in order, transmit sa Senate, diba? Wala dapat reasons for delaying. So, ano ang recourse ng ibang member ng Senado to say, kung nagdi-delay, kahit wala na dapat ika-delay, dinidelay ng Senate President ang pag-convene into an impeachment court, hindi niya sinusunod yung forthwith. Ano ang recourse nila? They go back to the Supreme Court?
I think it's not the Senate as an institution. Within the Senate, they can vote on the plenary for the convening.
So,
if the Senate President doesn't act on the impeachment articles, the Senate as a collegial body can vote because the Senate President is just one vote. So by a majority vote, they can already ask for the convening of the impeachment court. So that is the recourse of the Senate. The other parties, yung tayong mga nasa labas at nanonood lamang, pwede tayo mag-file ng kaso sa Supreme Court para pilitin ang impeachment court na mag-convene.
So, attorney, in essence, sinabi ng Supreme Court, bahala kayo dyan sa ginagawa nyo.
Tama, oo, gano'n. In a sense, yun yung
ito pa rin
tinatawag
pagbabasihan.
natin, Diego, na inassign kasi ang kapangyarihan sa isang branch of government. So dapat hindi nakikialam yung isang branch sa another branch. Unless merong grave abuse of discretion, dun lamang papasok ang Supreme Court sa mga gantong kaso. At sinabi ng Supreme Court dito sa pinakabagong kaso na to, na walang ginawang a grave abuse of discretion ang Senate noong 19th Congress.
Okay. Ang tanong dito, Attorney Reg, may reaction ba si Senator Chis Escudero regarding this ruling ng Supreme Court?
Well, I was on a call with him last night and he was very happy because of the fact that he was really targeted at that time, and I was insisting at the time that we have legal basis. So he was happy that there was at least ano na to, parang
Ano yung exact words niya?
finality doon sa ano na yun, wala nang doubts ngayon doon sa ginawa.
So vindicated.
Oo. Ano yung
Vindicated,
exact words
oo.
ni
Vindicated.
Senator Cheese? Kasi bihira lang, hindi namin siya masyado nakikita ngayon. So, we're taking this opportunity. I know nakakausap mo siya or feeling ko nakakausap mo naman siya. So, baka naman meron siyang sinabi doon that you can share with us, Attorney.
Well, ang sabi niya, congratulations. O kita mo, tama tayo.
With
Yun.
exact words.
So doon ang galing yung statement ng attorney na vindicated because all along hindi rin mali ang interpretation nyo.
Yeah. Oo.
Yes. Kasi may basehan kami sa Korte Supremang desisyon, Diego. So talagang malakas ang loob namin ipaglaban yon. Well, nag-drown out kami ng mga mas ibang mga maiingay dahil mas pinapaboran na i-guess sila ng mga ibang mga media outfits. Buti nga dito sa inyo, balanse kayo at lahat kami ginigess ninyo.
So, attorney, so you've seen the impeachment proceedings. I'm sure na monitor mo rin yan. You've seen yung process pinagdaanan nila. And assuming na umabot sa Senado to, do you think now forthwith wala nang basihan kung para i-delay to because in order ang ginawa ng Committee on Justice?
Tama ka. Mukhang nag-follow na yung House of Representatives doon sa mga guidelines na sinabi ng Korte Suprema sa Duterte versus House of Representatives. So mukhang wala na magiging problema. Unlike before, na nakareses ang Senado, na hindi alam natin kung tutuloy from 19th to 20th Congress, yung articles of impeachment, at saka kung na-violate yung one-year ban rule.
Okay.
Pero dito kasi parang wala nang ganong mga issue.
So the last Congress ba, do you agree? Renilroad nila?
Yung Kongreso
Yung last,
last
yung sa
year,
panahon
I
niya.
think they were just caught in a very tight position that they had to decide to already take the opportunity of impeaching the vice president.
Well, Attorney, we recognize na you no longer speak for the impeachment court if ever, ano. Pero
Yes.
let's say, for example, hypothetically, ma-impeach si Vice President Sara Duterte sa Kongreso at matransmit ito sa Senado. At this point in time, ngayong season na to sa Senado, do you think na meron pa rin mga maaaring mag-cause ng delay or maaaring dire-diretso na silang mag-convene as Senate Impeachment Court?
Angela, magandang tanong yan. No? I think napakadali na ngayon dahil nga pag sumampa yung articles of impeachment, hindi tayo, wala tayong issue na magtatapos ng isang kongreso tapos magbubukas yung bagong kongreso. So kapag susundan na lamang ng Senado yung kanilang Senate impeachment rules, nakasaad na doon na talagang mabilis na yung magiging proseso. So magko-call lamang si Senate President Tito Soto ng convening of the impeachment court upon reception of the articles of impeachment. Pagkatapos noon, magsuswear-in yung mga senators as senator judges. At pagkatapos noon, iprepresenta ng House of Representatives, panel of prosecutors sa Senado as an impeachment court, yung articles of impeachment. Pagkatapos yung tuloy-tuloy yung proseso, yung preliminary conference, yung pagmamark ng ebidensya at pagre-receive ng mga ebidensya at yung mga paglalahad ng kaso ng House Prosecutor Panel bilang sila yung nagsasampa ng complaint sa Vice Presidente. So yung mga pagpapasagot, para mag-answer si Vice Presidente, mabilis na lang yon. Siguro in 3 months' time, we can have already conclusion or even nasa middle na tayo ng impeachment trial.
Well, I understand also, Attorney, that today, the recent happenings is very unique as well dahil meron tayong nagaganap ng mga Middle East conflict, etc. And sinabi din naman sa Senate baka hatiin nila yung kanilang yung session nila if ever matuloy nga itong impeachment complaint laban kay VP Sara Duterte. So okay lang 'yon na mahati yung atensyon ng Senado sa impeachment, sa iba't ibang mga hearings na ginaganap nila.
Yeah. Usually ginagawa naman talaga yan dahil dalawa na ang function ng isang Senado kapag nahain na yung articles of impeachment na endorse na sa Senate. Yung plenary powers niya bilang legislative body at saka yung bilang quasi-judicial powers niya bilang impeachment court body. So, pwede niyang hatiin yung schedule niya either araw-araw or sa linggo, o kunwari 3 araw para doon sa legislative matters, tapos 2 araw or 1 araw para sa impeachment matters. Or pwede yung isa-isang araw sa umaga, ibang matter yung i-discuss nila, yung impeachment, tapos sa hapon naman yung legislative. So, nasa kapangyarihan niya ng Senado at ginagawa naman yan at nagawa na ng Senado yan ng mga previous impeachments.
Well, nandito na rin si Attorney. I'd like to ask you on a matter also sa impeachment, yung the hotly contested green box. Siyempre, I wanna pick your legal mind dito. Or schools of thought are saying, Attorney...
You're talking now as a lawyer,
as a
not
lawyer,
for impeachment court.
Hindi, kasi attorney, sabi nila, hindi pwede buksan to dahil yung tax code. Pero sabi ni Senator Laila de Lima, Congresswoman Laila de Lima, well, hindi umiibabaw ang tax code over the Constitution.
Sabi ko nga, no, sa mga ganyan, kanya-kanyang theory of law or theory of the case yung kanilang pinoproffer. So, pero may tama rin si Senator de Lima, may mga schools of thought na ganyan ang sinasabi. Nabasa ko rin yan na yung constitutional duty ng Justice Committee dapat manaig yun, no? Kung nangangailangan sila ng dokumento para maihain yung articles of impeachment at makita at mapanagot ang isang public officer, mas nananaig dapat yon. Nakita ko yon, na nabasa ko rin yung sa tax code na yung confidentiality. So again, Diego, that is a highly contested issue, legal question that only the Supreme Court can decide. So both parties will have their legal luminaries debating the matter like what we did with the forthwith issue. So, pero ultimately, malalaman natin
Supreme
yan kapag
Court.
nag-decide na ang Korte Suprema.
Can the impeachment court open the box without the Supreme Court's decision?
Tama ka din dyan, no? That is hindi ko rin alam because I think yan ang mga magagandang ano. Pero I think doon sa exception sa confidentiality ng tax records, unlike sa bank secrecy law, may nakalagay kasi na for impeachment purposes. Pero doon sa confidentiality ng BIR records, wala. The only thing na meron doon is pag nag-consent ang presidente. So ang question na lang is, will the president consent? Will the BIR commissioner ask for the imprimatur of the president to open that box?
Interesting.
Pero is it safe to say na kumbaga parang tama lang din yung ginawa ng Kongreso since clarificatory hearing lang naman supposedly yung ginagawa nila doon, hindi na lang inopen kesa ma-technical sila in the future?
Actually, sinasabi nga ni dating BIR Commissioner Henares, Angela, na may violation na yung BIR. Because ang nakasaad sa tax code ay bawal mong ibigay o i-disclose. The fact na binigay mo na-violate mo na yung provision of law na yun. So yun yung nakita pa sa isang interview ni BIR Commissioner Henares, which she might be right as well. Kasi nga yung ano naman na yun, yung provision na yun is mala prohibita. So regardless of intent of the BIR Commissioner, masasanction siya, magkakaroon siya ng criminal liability. Kung ganun ka-strict natin babasahin yung batas.
Ayan, nagkaroon pa tayong libreng konsulta with attorney.
Alright, as always, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Attorney Reginald Tonggo, former spokesperson of the Senate Impeachment Court. Good morning.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Philippine peso plunged to another record low against the US dollar. The local currency continued to weaken, closing at 61.567 against the greenback this Wednesday. This comes just a day after it breached the 61 per dollar mark. The peso has repeatedly hit new lows since the Middle East conflict escalated in late February and settled beyond the 60 per dollar level 12 times, half of those just in April. While a weaker peso may benefit families of overseas Filipino workers who get more pesos for every dollar remitted, experts say it also drives up the cost of imports like oil since these are paid in dollars.
Now at this point, let's check the situation over at the Senate. We have our mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Merimon, go ahead.
Angela, Diego, good morning. Yung Energy Committee ng Senado ngayon ay nagsisimula na yung pagdinig nito tungkol sa mga panukala na isinusulong yung paggamit ng solar energy and other renewable energy tulad ng hydro energy, yung even baka nga pagdating doon sa mga organic sources of energy, lahat yan pag-uusapan ngayon. At may mga representatives from the Energy Regulatory Commission, mula sa iba't ibang electricity companies and ibang mga stakeholders na hihintay na magsalita tungkol sa usapin na to. At kahapon kasi doon sa pagdinig naman ng Senate Pro Tech Committee, nabuksan yung usapin na bukod sa pagtaas ng presyo o halaga ng produktong petrolyo, ng krudo, ng langis, pati raw ang coal na ang denomination ay in dollars at ini-import din ng bansa, tumataas din ang halaga nito. So ngayon around $132 ito per ton, kaya hindi raw dahil doon sa subsidiya o kung anumang illegal na charges ang ginagawa, kundi dahil dito sa generation and transmission charges, kaya tumataas ang singil sa kuryente. Pero isa pang factor din daw dyan yung forex, dahil nga bumababa ang halaga ng peso kumpara sa dolyar, mas nagiging mahal ngayon yung pagkonsumo o yung pagbili ng part ng mix ng kuryente, which is ang coal. Though ang sinasabi naman pagdating sa produktong petrolyo, may rollback na nangyari, pero dahil nananatiling sarado ang Strait of Hormuz o kaya naman matagal pa ang negotiation doon sa US, sa Iran, sa Israel o kaya naman sa ibang lugar pang apektado sa Middle East, nakikita rin ng komite na pwedeng magtaas pa raw yung presyo nito sa mga susunod na linggo. Kaya nakikita nila around, sabi pa nga ni DSW Secretary Rex Gatchalian, around 1.4 million households ang maaaring maapektuhan ng krisis na to kapag ka nagtagal pa. Balik sa inyo.
Meron mo ano yung sentiment nila sa, yung individual sentiment nila on the oil deregulation law?
Pagdating kasi dito, yung ilang mga senador, nung nagsisimula pa lang yung krisis, kasama na dyan sina Senate President Tito Soto, gusto na nilang balikan at pag-aralan muli itong oil deregulation law. At ang sabi pa nga ni SP Soto, kung pwede i-repeal na o ipagpawalang bisa na. Kasi ang naging concern nila dito, mahirap daw malaman kung magkano nga ba yung pagkakuha ng supply, kung may buffer stock ba to, magkano ba yung nagiging markup nito. Doon nila nakikita na may pamimihasang nangyayari, posible dahil nga sa krisis na nangyayari ngayon. And ang isa pang na-raise nila, kung sakali man, pwede daw madagdag doon yung amendment kung sakali na on emergency situations or crisis situations, baka maaaring magkaroon ng intervention ang gobyerno para lang masiguro nila that either they will be able to hold back the prices para daw hindi tuluyang mabutas ang bulsa ng mga kumukonsumo nito o di kaya makahanap pa ng ibang pamamaraan para mapagaan yung pagkonsumo nga nitong mga produktong petrolyo.
I remember, Merimon, yesterday, nung nag-uusap sila dyan, sabi ni Senator Amy Marcos na kung konti lang naman pala yung kinukuha, 'di ba, mula doon sa lifeline rate, 'di ba, mga 8 million ganyan, sabi niya ganun. Bakit hindi na lang kunin ng Meralco or ERC ba 'yun yung sinabi niya? Ano yung naging katapusan ng usapin na 'yon?
Yan kasi yung concern nila Senator Bam Aquino rin at Senator Risa Hontiveros na yung mga kumukonsumo ng kuryente, ang pinapoint pa nga nila dito yung mga middle income households at saka yung mga mahihirap pa, sila raw yung pumapasan nitong extra charges sa kuryente. Whereas sinasabi ng Senador na Senator Bam at Senator Risa na maaari naman dokunin sa pondo ng bansa o ng gobyerno yung pagbayad dito. Kaya may final na resolution si Senator Bam para investigahan at tignan nga kung paano nag-work yung pag-charge ng subsidies sa mga electric facilities or companies. Ang sabi naman ng isa sa mga kumpanya na dumalo kahapon is bukas naman daw sila sa kahit na anong regulations na ibababa ng Energy Regulatory Commission. Kaya ang nasabi rin Senator Amy dito, bukas naman pala sila sa usapin na to. So magandang sila na raw ang magkasundo kung sakaling darating na nga yung oras na magagawa yan. Ang sabi pa nga ni Senator Amy, bakit daw, hindi rin daw ba pwede na imbis yung mga kumukonsumo ng kuryente, yung mga kumpanya na ang magbayad. So,
Oo.
dalawa yung nakikita natin na nare-raise na suwestyon tungkol nga dyan.
Oo. And lastly, Mary Mon, of course, yung pinag-uusap, kahapon, kanina kasi kausap ko yung taga-ERC at sinabi nga niya na pagbimitingan pa rin sa board nila paano yung gagawing staggered payment. Of course, although this is not new to them, ginawa na to during the pandemic, pero ito kasi, iba yung sitwasyon natin naman dito, no? Meron bang magagawa ang Senado, kumbaga para utusan ba or for the lack of a better term ang ERC na madaliin sila magdesisyon para yung desisyon na yon ay makaskid kaagad sa mga tao?
Well, yun kasi yung pinaka-purpose ngayon ng Senate Protect Committee, lalo pa pagdating dito sa usapin ng krisis sa Middle East at yung epekto nito sa iba't ibang sektor ng bansa. Yan yung reason kaya kung kakailanganin nilang gisahin o kailangan nilang mag-init ang ulo nila para lang magkaroon ng urgency to act itong iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno, yun yung maaari nilang magawa. Kaya nitong mga lumipas na pagdinig ng Senate Protect, it's either mapapansin nila kung ano pa yung lapses ng judgment o ano pa yung kakulangan sa mabilisang pagkilos. Kaya kumalala nga natin sina Department of Energy Secretary Sharon Garin, medyo napuruhan dahil nga doon sa question pa kung kakayanin pa ba yung pag-supply, yung question sa pagpopresyo ng iba't ibang oil companies. So they can also do the same sa iba't iba pang ahensya na mayroong say o maaaring magawa dito. And kasama na rin dyan, ito nga yung push din nila for renewable energy, yung imamandato na rin yung mga government offices na gamitin ito. At yun yung iba't ibang mga panukalang isasalang din sa pagdinig ng Energy Committee. Pero kahapon naman, ang nabanggit naman ng DepDev sa pagdinig ng Senate Protect pagdating sa fuel supply na as of April 17 daw, nakapag-secure na ng average na available fuel supply na aabot ng 52 days ang gobyerno. Ang DBM nag-release na rin daw ng 20 billion pesos worth sa Department of Energy for procurement support. Ang target nito, additional 10 days of buffer stock. And confirmed naman daw na may 1.2 million barrels ng diesel ang nasa bansa at inaasahan naman yung patuloy daw na delivery.
All right, thank you for that, mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes. Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Atin Ito Coalition's fourth civilian mission to the West Philippine Sea begins its journey to Pagasa Island today. For more details, we have mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Arles, go ahead.
Angela at Diego, Return of Hope o Balik Pag-asa. Ayan ang tema ng ika-4 na civilian mission ng Atin Ito Coalition na tutungo nga sa West Philippine Sea o sa Pag-asa Island particularly. Para yan, muling igiit ang ating soberanya sa West Philippine Sea. Mula dito sa Pier 15 sa Maynila, inaasahan nga natin na anytime ay maglalayag na itong MV Felix Oka na magsisilbing barko nitong civilian-led mission na ito patungo doon sa Pag-asa Island. Layo nito na magdala ng pagkain, krudo at alalay sa halos 500 Pilipino sa Pag-asa Island, bunsod ng patuloy na paggalaw ng presyo ng petrolyo. Magkakaroon din ng medical outreach at pagtatanghal sa isla. Target din ito, Angela at Diego, na ang pagpapalakas ng civilian presence sa iba't ibang bahagi ng West Philippine Sea at paglaban nga doon sa Chinese disinformation campaign, pati ang naratibo ng mga tinatawag na Chinadors na malabo ang posisyon sa inaagaw na teritoryo ng Pilipinas. Kanina nga nagkaroon na ng send-off ceremony or program kaninang pasado alas 9 ng umaga kung saan nakita natin mismo ang ating mga kasama na volunteers, fisher folks, artists at supporters na kahapon pa lang ay talagang abala na sa pagtutulong-tulong na pagbuhat ng mga donasyong pagkain at paghahanda sa mga programa para sa kabuuan ng misyon. Lulan din nito Diego at Angela yung jet ski na gagamitin nga para sa isang jet ski kung saan layo nito na ipakita nga yung soberanya ng Pilipinas, magje-jet ski ang kaakbayan representative na si Dada Kiram Ismula at ay maglalagay nga ng watawat ng Pilipinas doon sa Pag-asa Island. At ito kung makikita lang ninyo at mag-work ang ating internet, katabi mismo natin dito yung jet ski nga na binitbit na nga nila rito na inaasahan ng magagamit doon sa pagtitipon. Dito present kanina ang ilan sa ating mga kasama sa West Philippine Sea Block ng Kongreso, kagaya ni Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sendanya, na sinabi na hindi raw dapat takot ang kakambal o kadikit ng paglalayag patungong West Philippine Sea dahil bahagi ito ng kapuluan ng Pilipinas. Pero para naman kay Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement President Edicio de la Torre, simbolo ang civilian mission na ito ng mithiing pagkakaisa ng mga Pilipino. Angela at Diego.
All right, thank you so much, mobile journalist Orles de los Santos.
Now expect high heat index levels in several parts of the country today. Pagasa says heat index may reach 42 degrees Celsius in Pasay, Dagupan, Olongapo, Dumangas in Iloilo, and Giwan in Eastern Samar. Even higher at 43 degrees Celsius in Cavite City, Puerto Princesa, all under the danger category, where heat cramps and heat exhaustion are likely and prolonged exposure may lead to heat stroke. Pagasa advises the public to limit time outdoors, stay hydrated, and take precautions against heat-related illnesses.
Access to cancer treatment is expanding in Rizal with the opening of a free chemotherapy center aimed at providing care to patients who may otherwise struggle with the cost of treatment. Mobile Journal Jas Paredes reports.
The first ever free chemotherapy center in Rizal has officially opened this April. Established in Barangay San Roque, Cardona, Rizal, making free treatment more accessible to Rizaleños, opening its doors to patients in need of consultation or treatment for all types of cancer.
All the chemo centers, it started when we learned about the Republic Act 11215 or the National Integrated Cancer Control Act. And it was very historic because the government made a promise to its people that no Filipino should be denied of cancer care because of cost, distance, or lack of access.
Its subsidiary, We Hope Medical Group, decided to establish a chemotherapy center in Rizal as part of its advocacy to extend free cancer treatment in the provinces, with plans to establish more chemotherapy centers across municipalities in Rizal.
Not just one, but we are targeting almost every big municipalities in Rizal because it's close to 4 million people. Imagine that, and with the cancer incidence rate in the province, we are looking at 14%. So that's a lot. So we want to help cover.
Any patient may seek services at the free chemotherapy center with no age restrictions. Those with suspected cancer may come in for consultation. Meanwhile, those in need of chemotherapy treatment for all types of cancer may avail free services under its no-expense policy. Even aftercare services, such as oral medications, are provided free of charge. The only requirement is membership with PhilHealth.
So kung wala kang PhilHealth card, we will help the patient to get one. And then yung medical record, just go to the chemo center, we will take care of you. Yun ang namin, ang motto. Pagdating ng pasyente, then we will take care of them. We will guide them each step of the way.
The chemotherapy center partners with government agencies, mainly PhilHealth and the DOH for funding, to ensure its services remain free of charge.
So I mentioned PhilHealth, it covers 6 cancers only, and it's very minimal. Born out of the Republic Act 11215, an offshoot of that is a Cancer Assistance Fund. And then we are able to tap MAIP, the medical assistance for indigent and financially incapacitated patients. So that DOH is helping us with that. We also tap AICS of DSWD.
However, We Hope Medical Group also operates various clinics within and outside Metro Manila, including Bulacan, Pangasinan, Laguna, and Nueva Ecija, among others. For those who wish to seek consultation or treatment, Smart Save Chemotherapy Center is open from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Walk-ins are welcome, or patients may contact the center through the provided number. Kapatid Jas Paradas, we are One News.
University of Santo Tomas advanced in the UAAP Season 88 Women's Stepladder semifinals after eliminating the Adamson Lady Falcons in straight sets. The win marks UST's second consecutive do-or-die victory after surviving Far Eastern University in a playoff to reach the Final Four. Anja Poyos led the Tigresses with 17 points, while Regina Jurado added 13 in the straight sets victory. UST now faces a tougher challenge against National University for a finals berth.
Looking for your next coffee spot? A new web-based platform is making it easier to discover cafes near you, helping users find, compare, and navigate coffee shops. Mobile Journal, Ray Vicente with the report.
Finding for nearby cafe? Well, good news for coffee lovers like you. There's a web-based coffee discovery tracker that helps you find, compare, and navigate to coffee shops across the country.
Hanap Kape is a web application para makatulong sa mga users natin na maghanap at mag-explore ng mga coffee shops dito sa Pilipinas. Pwede mo siyang gawing parang application na yung pwede mo i-add to home screen widget na para mag-action na application.
Some of Hanap Kape's features are to locate nearby coffee shops without consuming energy or gas to personally look for cafe, as well as compare menu prices across 660 plus items from popular brands. You can also personalize your coffee entries and view quick recommendations of best-selling items. Currently, the Hanap Kape has a total of 16,300 coffee shops covering from Luzon to Mindanao. However, this only includes popular and local brands across the country. But there's another feature for small coffee businesses to be included in the tracker.
Meron akong feature na pwede nila i-register yung coffee shop nila. But nagbe-base lang din kasi ito sa Google Map. Soon, gagawa ko ng community para makatulong din na ma-update yung mga videos natin. But sa ngayon, ang mga nakalagay lang talaga dyan is yung mga known brands tsaka yung mga local brands ng mga coffee shops.
And as a coffee lover himself, Mark was also inspired by the growing popularity of coffee in the Philippines.
Coffee lover din talaga ako. And sa mga tropahan, minsan kahit sa mga workmates, nababanggit nila, saan ba may malapit na kapehan or saan tayo magkakape. So, ayun, isa siya sa mga naging inspiration ko rin. Chinek ko talaga kung may nag-i-exist ba na ganito. Yung specific lang talaga sa mga coffee shops. And upon checking naman, so far, wala pa naman talaga website na nag-i-exist na ganito rin.
A landing page is currently being developed, featuring history of Hanap Kape and coffee shops, roadmap of what they finish, and others that will soon be available in the coming months. Kapatid Ray Vicente, we are One News.
Dapat pala makipag-partner ka sa kanya eh. Di ba marami kang alam na coffee place?
Maging kumpare ko yan eh. And that, coffee lover here.
Yeah.
And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.